Let's get into scaling and growth. I think that this is the first thing I want to talk about really quick, because to me, those are two different words. And often we'll see that they're interchangeable. When most people say that they're scaling, they're actually growing. And when people, very rarely do I have people besides maybe you come to me and say I'm scaling, and you're actually scaling. So here's the difference.
So there are certain people in your life that you meet that you just always want to be around. And I would say that the person I have on with me today is one of those people. He's a brilliant thinker. He's wildly intelligent. A lot of the stuff that he says, it's kind of like, oh, he said what I've thought, but I never knew how to put the words to actually say. And so I'm really excited to bring on Stafford Newsome with us. He's actually been on the podcast before. If you go back to episode 58, Stafford was on it with Matt Harward, where we talked about AI and how to 10x your marketing output. And then on top of that, last summer we had Stafford came in person along with Matt, and we did this. We had like 1,500 or 2,000 people registered, and we did this live event on AI. And so I wanted to bring Stafford on because he's grown a lot of businesses. He has taken things, and I'm sure we'll dive into this, but like he's taken companies from like 0 to $1 million run rate in like 90 days just for fun, and then shut them down. And I know a lot of people here are like, Josh, I'm just trying to get to the $1 million threshold. But what I say that because there are frameworks of operation that I have observed. If you apply these principles to your life and your business, you can grow really, really quickly. And if you really understand them, it makes your life go a lot better in those areas. And so Stafford, or Ford, everyone calls him Ford, by the way. If you're friends, you call him Ford.
Yeah,
his mom says Stafford. But Stafford, good to have you, man.
It's nice to hear. That was the most flattering intro that I hope I live up to. You make me sound way cooler than I really am.
You know, I heard flattery gets you everywhere, so that's why I opened with that.
Right? Yeah. I'm currently recording this from a bedroom that I rented in Spain, and I'm just living on the road right now. So hopefully audio and light and everything works well for you. It's not the Ecommerce Alley level of quality, but almost nobody
muy
is
guape.
as polished as you guys.
Muy guape.
Muy guape?
Yeah.
Oh, tu hablas español muy bien. Yeah, dude, I'm in Spain.
You're in Spain, yeah. So, and you've been traveling. You've been on the road. I mean, you were just in Croatia, and you've been all over since we've been talking the last couple months.
Yeah, I actually, after I did the thing with y'all in the summer, just a few months later, I packed up my house, put it in a storage unit, and my wife and I have just been traveling and working abroad ever since. So
that's awesome.
Don't have a home in America right now, but I've got a lot of Airbnbs, and that's about it.
That's pretty sweet, man. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I want to kind of, if we could, just anybody listening, I just want to bring everybody kind of up to speed with who Stafford Newsome is, and why you're built Ford tough. I just have that in my notes. I had to say that, dude. You are built Ford tough. So just bring us up to speed. Like, what do you do right now?
I'm a partner and co-owner of Unicorn Industries, and we're marketers. We've really play in the AI space. We like to develop tools and automations to help us market better and more smartly. We're not an agency. We run all of our own products, our own brands, our own offers, doing it. But just a couple of nerds that like to figure out how to do this faster, smarter, programmatically, and enjoy doing it while we're doing it. So that's what I do.
I love that. And I want to just let everybody know, like, I have every time, and we joke, Dylan and I joke about this all the time. Every time we meet with Stafford and Matt, we make more money. That's the running joke here. Every time I get you on a podcast, every time we talk to you guys, we learn something and we take it and we apply it. And what's going to happen is in 3 months, I'm going to be telling you something that I take from this podcast. So I feel like I get a front row seat here, man, and I get to ask all the questions, which is great. But anybody listening, a lot of frameworks that we've learned in our business at the Ecommerce Alley have been from like Matt and Stafford. I view you guys as like people I admire and I look up to, and you guys are trailblazing with methodology strategies of scaling companies that I've like never seen before. You introduced me to rapid experimentation and stuff around low threshold, high threshold, all these other elements that we have then taken and applied to our business. And I tell Matt this, but like the first time I met you guys, like we barely spent $3,000 on Facebook ads in a month. And now, like, we'll do that in a day, and some days we're doing 2-3 times that, depending on the cycles that we're in. Never would have been possible if I didn't meet you guys. So anyway, I'm saying that because this guy, when he speaks, I would listen. We're going to talk today about something that is a little bit different. And I wanted to bring Stafford on and say, let's talk about something that's like not what we normally talk about, which is usually Facebook ads and super tactical stuff. And what I wanted to talk about is scaling and growing and what to do when things are actually going well. I think that's a really interesting topic because you've done this so well, Stafford. Like you know the puzzle pieces that you need to play, or the cards in what to play and in what order to remove constraints and really grow businesses, because you guys have done this so many times with like 7-figure brands, 8-figure brands, and kind of beyond. And so I would love to talk about that, if that's all right.
Awesome. First thing, I got to clarify a little bit. You said that I grew one business just to shut it down for a test. Since then, I've actually done it 3 times. We've grown 3 businesses to $1 million just to either turn them away or shut them off. So, and the reason why I mentioned that is it's not really to brag or anything, but it's really to play into the topic of what we're talking about today of what to do when things are growing and when things are going well. In those situations, one was in-house e-commerce business, grew it up to $1 million, realized that our processes and systems, even though it was profitable at $1 million in just a few months, was not worth our time and energy to keep moving forward with. Same thing with the 2 other ones, which were, if you caught us a couple years ago, we were actually doing agency work for people for a short bit, and ran two other businesses up to $1 million, one in 6 months and one in 3 months. And both of those situations were also us taking those moments of saying, hey, we're doing great. We're actually scaling and growing super well. And let's step back and look at it and say, what should we really be doing as a business, as a company, as an entrepreneur? Because part of this is also what's fulfilling to me and what's filling my bucket as well. And let's make decisions from there. So I've shut down 3 profitable $1 million businesses, or I've ended those contracts with people. And I don't regret doing it at all. So, that being said, let's get into scaling and growth. I think that this is the first thing I want to talk about really quick, because to me, those are 2 different words, and often we'll see that they're interchangeable. You'll find that I get nitpicky about words, but that's just because I'm trying to keep my brain organized about what means what. So for me, when most people say that they're scaling, they're actually growing. And when people, well, actually, very rarely do I have people besides maybe you come to me and say I'm scaling, and you're actually scaling. So here's the difference. Scaling is when you can take a fungible asset and you can throw it at your marketing or at your business, and it can continue to grow without any hiccups, rather frictionlessly. Fungible, in this case for marketing, would be money. So if you can just throw money at your ad campaigns and you can continue to push that and mash the gas pedal down, and you're cranking up and you're making more money within that same reasonable margin of space for profitability in your business, then you're in scale. Keep on throwing money until you get to the point that something breaks. And when you get to a point where something breaks, and the moment that it breaks, that is when your company is back into growth. Growth is when you're fixing something, or you're trying to find another solution, or you're bringing additions to your business that allow you to get back to scaling. So you'll have, and often in my experience, you'll have periods where you'll have scale, and then growth as kind of like a small plateau going upwards, and then scale, and then growth. So the scaling moments for a business for me are, depending on the size of the business, they're going to be short and aggressive but they're going to take your business to whole entire new levels. And the thing is that once you've scaled and you've hit that growth cycle, I do consider that a level, like leveling up in a video game. Like you've gone up and you've hit that next growth level. Everything below that, you know how to do that. Your company is frictionless in those areas now. Like you can always sit in those areas, but it's getting into that next growth level where I get excited because that means that I'm about to hit another scale area and I can get to another area there. So for e-commerce, it might be, for example, that your first $100,000, you get up from 0 to 100 and you can kind of find your campaign, push to $100,000 in your first year, $120,000 in your first year, and that's a little scale. And then something breaks, whether in your ad campaign, like you're hitting a glass ceiling there, so you can't really move past that, or maybe fulfilling things out of your garage isn't really reasonable anymore at this point. Those are instances of growth where you need to get over that. And the next thing, and this is going to be, what is the term in investing with compounding? This is going to be compounding. So maybe you go from $100,000 and your next one's not until you hit 2 million. Like once you cross 100,000, you'll grow up to 2 million over there. And so you'll be able to scale there. But once you hit 2 million, you're going to hit another growth issue where maybe, your small fulfillment center or your 3PL or something like that is not the most reasonable thing to do for your e-commerce business. So we're entering growth again, get through that. And then maybe it's 20 million from there. And then from there, it's 80 million. And it just kind of, compounds and grows there. So scaling and growth, really cool concept. For me, those are two different words. And I just wanted to clarify that right up front for you guys.
I think that's really good. And what I love is whenever I say something to our clients and I talk about it and then you talk about it, I'm like, oh, it's just validation for me. So what I usually do is I literally have a video in one of our training programs that it's for our mentorship clients that we work with and coach. And one of the very first videos is called Scaling is Not What You Think. Because everybody thinks
that. It's not.
We draw this mountain and I'm like, okay, so here's what most people think. They think that if I was at the bottom of the mountain and I look up and I want to get to the top, scaling, they think it's just a straight line up and you just walk right up. And it's not like that. Like there's like this path that you go through and you got the switchbacks and there's like this growth until you get to this final moment of, oh, now we have this far, we can scale up it. But you're not always scaling. People think they're scaling all the time. And I think that the word is thrown around a lot because it's sexy in the marketing world. And a lot of people like to be like, I'm trying to scale. And then the question is, how much inventory do you have of the products that you're leading with from your advertising standpoint? Will those sell out if you try to do those things? This is great. So I do have a question for you. So if I'm listening right now, I'm like, hey, how do you identify what phase you're in? Like growth and scaling, where do you say this is me or this is a symptom of where I might be? Like maybe I think I'm scaling, but I'm actually growing. Maybe I think I'm growing and I'm actually scaling.
Cool. So let's take ourselves out of the picture as business owners in this situation or as marketers, and let's look at the numbers. I always that's the beautiful thing about digital marketing. That's the beautiful thing about e-commerce is that we've got numbers for everything. They can be overwhelming, but they can also tell us a lot of truth that we do or do not want to know personally. So scaling for me, first of all, fungibility, throwing money at it. If I can throw money at it and my campaigns are within the same reasonable margin every single day, then I'm scaling. I'm in a process of scaling and I continue throwing things at that. So for me, if I can go, 2 weeks and my numbers are absolutely like solid. And so I'm not touching my campaigns. I'm not editing something every single day. But my numbers are solid and in a good place, then I'm in a place of scale and I should continue pushing budget behind that so far as I can go. It frustrates my wife sometimes because she works in public health and she goes in and does work on all this stuff and she'll see me and I'll be on my fourth walk for the day. And she's like, why are you walking? Like, why are you not even working today? I was like, I know you don't believe me, but the best thing I can do according to the numbers today is go take a walk and stop looking at my computer. Because touching my computer, I'm going to mess it up. Like the numbers say I'm good. I should trust the numbers and let them run. So if you see your numbers and you can trust them and you can walk away from them and you know that they're going to stay fine, you're in a process where you should be scaling. You should be pushing more on top of that. If you do push on that,
what do you consider? You said, okay, so when you can continue pushing dollars into ads and it's within a reasonable margin. You keep saying within a reasonable margin of space. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so this is going to be different for everybody. If you're selling like stickers online, you're going to have really low margins and all stuff. So if you're coming and if you're selling like a course or a high ticket item, like something that's $5,000 or $10,000, then your margin space is going to be much larger. So say you on a typical 2-week period, that it's going to be hitting between, a 10 and 20% margin. I'm picking random numbers. Don't actually follow this advice. 10 and 20% margin. And you can see that it's just going to fluctuate within those bounds. And that's what you can wake up, you can go have lunch and you come back and you see it's within those bounds. Like that's what I mean by a reasonable margin. It's going to be specific for your business. For me, it's a 2 ROAS on my ad spend right now. If I go down to 1.8, if I go, up to 3 or something like that, like I'm really not concerned. I'm just going to let it run. And that's reasonable for me. On the days where I show up and I'm saying, hey, I got a 0.7 going on, like obviously something's broken there. And so if I have one of those days within a couple week period where something's broken and I've gone through and I've made sure that it's not an actual technical error, like an API broke in my marketing, then I can't say that I'm in scale. I got to be honest with myself. The numbers are outside of the margin. I need to make sure that it's actually stable to go forward. So it's going to be within your business. Like as long as you're reasonably like within the upper and lower bounds of where you're happy for your business to make money, stay profitable, and it's stabilized, then that's what I mean. Okay.
So that sounds like that's scale. And then what do you consider growth? Or what are the
growth is when things break, and this could be across the board. So for marketing, the most common symptom is that is you've pushed your budget and your campaigns just break down. You can't spend more than $1,500 a day without things just going kaput over there. So that's telling me that with that current message that you're running, with that current advertising creative and that landing page that you're running, it's got a cap. Like the algorithm can only find certain amount of people for that specific message, and you've capped that out. So it's broken. For your operations, this could be anything from your customer service reps missing the incoming calls and missing getting back to all the customers within a reasonable amount of time. For your warehouse, this could be falling back on orders or not having enough space to keep your inventory or not getting it out quick enough or not having the proper agreements with shippers. And so there's different elements, but really it's looking back holistically at our systems and saying, is marketing good? Good. Is warehouse good? Nope, we got to fix that. We're in growth. Let's fix that. It might be a quick fix, might be a slow fix. And let's get back to pushing money. I just hit my microphone.
Don't you feel, and maybe don't you feel that there's always a constraint that you're removing though? Or do you feel that there's a moment where it's like, yeah, we're working on it, but it's not because like for example, like marketing, if you unlock that and you could pour the gasoline on, but you're always like trying to do better at forecasting. You're always like trying to improve a little bit. Do you consider that still growth, or is there a point where it's like, hey, we're scaling even though these are like tiny things we're just trying to get better at?
Yeah, you're constantly going to be able to improve. Like if there's a seasoned business owner listening to this podcast anywhere, like you're going to know that in a pure sense that I'm talking about, like there's never going to be a day where everything is perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. So this is where I'm saying, like, be reasonable with yourself, but know your numbers. And so you're going to be putting out some sort of small fire, and that's not throwing you back into growth. That's just a problem at work. There's going to be some tests that you're running and some new exploration in Facebook and all that stuff. But if that's not your cash cow, or if that's not something that you know that's solid, that doesn't count. That's in its own little space over there. And so you don't need to equate that towards whether I should be scaling or growing.
Okay.
Per chance.
So and that's all. That's very helpful. So like, let's say I've identified, I'm like, hey, I'm in growth mode right now in my business, or I'm in scale mode. So once I've kind of identified it, what do you do? And I know we were going to talk about scale, but I'm really curious, like, what do you do? Because I feel like a lot of people listening are like, I feel like I'm in the growth mode he just described. Like, I'm fixing things break down. I think that's the more common scenario. What do you kind of do in that situation?
Yeah, so I'm just...
From a marketing standpoint.
Well, in the situation for marketing where things are breaking and you're constantly working on, like, I'm going to go to the nearest variable of breakdown and work from there every single time. So if I know that it's breaking down in my post cart upsells, and that's where I'm making all my money, but it's broken down there, I'm going to go there first. If I know that it's breaking down on my landing page and the add to cart ratio is off, but everything else is fine, like, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the first level of breakdown and just work back from there. Just play detective, follow the tracks from there and move forward. So that's a really short answer. This could be a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah,
if I went down that
no, and I want to talk
deeply,
about the scaling side of it. Like, I want to talk about when things are going very well.
Cool.
And what you do in those moments. So if we could, let's dive into that. So, like, let's say I'm a company, and I do talk to these. Some of you listening, some people might say, that's not me. I want to be there. And there are people in these positions, and you will get there if you're listening. But there are people that I talked to just last week that, like, they're like, we can't spend enough. Like, they are in that scale mode. Like, they are just breaking through thresholds. They're in that mode, going from the 2 to the 20 million. When things are going really well, what do you kind of focus on, or what would you recommend?
So when things are going well, this is awesome, because when things are going well, marketing is not your problem. If I can't remember what book this was that I read, but it's talked about marketing as the wings to the plane. Okay.
Donald
So
Miller.
if you're scaling, okay, cool. Yeah. That's probably what it is. It was an Audible book, and once I finish them, they just leave my brain.
Awesome.
Except like the main context. But if a plane is moving fast, and things are going well, those wings are going to work regardless. So this gives us time to kind of take a break and say, like, the wings are holding things afloat. What are we going to focus on now? And for me, I like to focus on spring cleaning, and checking for my risks. First things first in my businesses, because if I know that I can trust my marketing team and things to work now, then I can clean up house a little bit and focus on those things that are going to help me, once we get to that next growth phase, be more efficient and be more effective. And get things done more aggressively and faster. So, for example, one common one that we hear for the spring cleaning is look at the hats you're wearing. Which ones are not serving you? Which ones should you not be doing? Which ones are you dropping? Where are your drop balls? And how can we get those either handled or eliminated completely? And so one of the businesses that we grew to $1 million and then killed was because we had drop balls, and it wasn't worth us to go through the effort of hiring people and figuring it all out. Our time was better leveraged just saying, let's abandon the whole entire business in that case. And so we were in a good space, and we took a step back, took a breather, and said, we really should be tripling down on learning how to do our AI and learning how to build these automation tools in order for us to become super powerful, super effective marketers. And having a whole entire floor of people running these rapid experimentation tests is not serving us. So let's get rid of the whole entire floor of people and figure out how to bring this into one program on our computer. And that's what we did.
So what's
another situation?
I was gonna say, what's an example of like a risk? So like, and by the way, I love this kind of stuff, and because I think that when things are going well in business, it's very easy to make dumb decisions or like make dumb calls. And I did a podcast on this for last year, and I called it the entrepreneur chaos junkie problem. Like, we're so inherently used to chaos that when there's no chaos, we just go create chaos that is completely unwanted. We make the hire, we pay for the software that we didn't need, we buy the equipment, we lease this big old office space from like one great month. So I think that I'd love to dive into the risk. Like, okay, things are going well. maybe I might be a risk to myself, but like, what is an example? Like if you're looking at your risks and saying, hey, here are risks that I might have. I need to address these in my business while we're in the scale mode so that some pillar doesn't maybe crack.
Cool. So the first thing that I do is I look at whatever I would consider a single point of failure. Anything that's related to my business that if it were to fail, my business would be absolutely decimated. And so, for example, there's a me example, and then there's a partner by Matt example, and these are two different levels of scale, by the way, because before he and I became partners, I worked under him. I was his employee, and then I guess I did a good enough job for him to want me to become his partner down the road.
There you go.
But the me example is I scaled up a business, and then we were in the process of scaling. We were pushing harder, and I looked back. And this was actually a phone call with my dad, and he just said, hey, what would happen like if Facebook just like went down today or something like that? I'd be out of the job. I'd be completely out of the job. That's a single point of failure. And for many businesses, as you're growing, you got to take that risk. You got to learn what works and all that stuff. So it's it doesn't serve me in that time to try to figure out how I diversify all of my marketing channels and all that stuff. I need to figure out what works now. I believe that Facebook and Meta is the best discovery platform in order to figure out what works. But the moment you know that works, you need to make sure that you're protecting your business and that you can splinter that out. So that could be going to native. That could be going to an email guy and figuring out how to do email. That could be going to TikTok, into YouTube. That could be, in some cases, talking to podcasts or getting billboards up, but diversifying how you're communicating to the world and how you're listening to the world. That's one of the first things that I've done with my businesses once I've got them to a good point. An example from Matt's world is they scaled up their business, and I think that they were doing like $60 or $80 million a year, and had hired a new employee that was working with like the financials and accounting and all this stuff, and was just like, hey, what happens if the merchant just decides like that there's an issue with you guys, or if something happens on that side? And for him at that level, that's a single point of failure. If we lose our merchant, if we lose our ability to run credit card transactions online, that's an issue. So we got a second merchant account, and we figured out how we can easily transfer our businesses between those and make sure that we're insulated on that level as well. This could be also making sure that you have different payment systems. This could be also, to some extent, getting your spend limits increased on Facebook and your other pages and ad accounts set up and warmed up as well, not just sitting there, but also warmed up with some experience on them in case you have any technological issues is there. Now, if you're in the business where your Facebook ad accounts are getting shut down regularly because you're breaking the rules, you shouldn't be in business, one. But this is different. This is making sure you have backup plans for yourself on those single points of failure, not that you're trying to do anything sketchy and stuff like that. So
that's good. I write that down, everyone. Single point of failure. I think that's good to start to look at. That's good stuff. I mean, I've heard horror stories. We have clients that one platform shuts them down, or they have a lot of revenue coming from Amazon, and they have a lot of revenue coming D2C, but they start leaning heavy to Amazon, and then Amazon kicks them off. And actually, a friend that we were just talking about, that company, they were on. I interviewed him on the podcast. It was hostage tape. He said it on the podcast, so I guess I could say it. And he said they were tracking toward $20 million a year on Amazon, and then Amazon was like, nope. Mouth tape is not allowed on here, and they booted them off. But they had such a strong D2C, through their Shopify store. They had such a strong channel there that like it hurt, but they recovered. They were just fine because they had that. If they were only on Amazon, man, I've heard horror stories of that, just getting shut down and losing it all.
That'd be terrifying.
Great. What's the single point of failure? Okay, love that. You check for that. Then you look at your hats. It sounds like all the things you're wearing. Yeah. You start expanding your team or outsourcing.
And seeing where I can bring that out. And honestly, like I like running lean. and all that stuff, but there are things that I'd rather not be doing. And so the point that I can get those off of me and I can clear out that space for me, I'm willing to outsource that or hire someone. I love outsourcing. I literally hired someone just, this, we do a lot of sandbox testing on our side. And I hired a guy that literally his whole entire job is to take all these prompts that I've generated and written myself, and he fills out a form all day long. I didn't hire a marketer or anything like that. I hired an English major and an English professor, because I wanted them to know how to write and to write well and take things from different points of view. And he just spends his day filling out a form. And then that auto generates and creates websites that I can then test stuff on. And that was a big hat for me because that just freed up a couple hours every single day for me to go focus on different areas.
Yeah. Love that.
Single points of failure, move your hats off. And then in marketing, getting to the point where you can use marketing to help leverage your audiences and using your marketing to help you, diversify your product offerings and stuff like that. All of it really comes back down to your audiences from there. So when things are going well, when you're sitting on top of a bunch of fish, you don't want to leave your fish to go find new fish, but you do want to drop new lines in the water with new lures and stuff like that and see if you can get more fish on the hook. Mm-hmm. And so those fish for any e-commerce owner, that is your audience. And your audience, you can do a couple things with them. You can climb them up, you can jump them, or you can take them deeper. And climbing them is probably the most used thing, and it's the most logical thing for any business to do. An example of that is for an education business or something like that is to bring people in on a free webinar, and then you climb them up to the paid course, and then you climb them up to the mastermind group that you meet with 4 or 5 times a year. That's a climber in that situation. So if things are going well and you know that you can bring people in, how can we start taking this audience and bringing them, to the next level within your business? Logical. A lot of people do that. You should be doing it. It's the most obvious thing to do, and do the obvious thing. That's why they're obvious. They work. The other things that we can do is we can look at how we can take things, take your audience and you can jump them from place to place. So an example in this case, let's say we're going back to the Ecommerce Alley, you're teaching people and all that stuff. And we've turned them into Facebook marketing pros. So what can we do with them in this case? We know that they want to know about how to market and what to do. Let's jump them. And in this case, jumping them might be jumping them over to Google, or jumping them over to YouTube, or jumping them over to email. And that may not be your expertise, but I'm sure as heck positive that you can find a business and partner with them or get an affiliate deal with them. And you can leverage your audience further by jumping them other places. Because what you need to acknowledge is that if you've done things well, you've built trust with your audience, and they're going to trust you and take your advice when you tell them that they can grow and that they can learn something else, or that they can buy this other product. And then you have going deep. So let's think about going deep with your audience as well. And in those cases, I would say this is more about thinking about who your audience is and what they want out of their life. So for example, I had a home improvement business, and we were selling tow hitches on big trucks, the adjustable kind. And we first we sold them those tow hitches, and we had a climb product in there that we figured out, which was just a nicer tow hitch that was stainless steel and reinforced and could probably pull a 747 if it wanted to. But we could also jump them, thinking about our audience, thinking about how the average truck owner is older, and they're male, and most Americans are not as limber as they used to be when they're young. So we jumped them over to ladders that could compact really small and that they could pull out of their bed of their truck so they can get in and out. Because if you're buying an adjustable truck hitch, your truck's probably really tall, it's probably lifted, and you may need help getting in and out. So wasn't necessarily a climb, but it fit the demographic there. Going deep with it, I didn't do this, but this is a situation or an example that you could use, is thinking about that truck owner and how they probably care about their paint jobs, and they probably care about making sure they have insurance on that, and they probably are caring about storage, and they're probably homeowners there. So this is where you could take your audience and start working on your business, taking your audience and using your business to communicate to them about maybe insurance, or maybe talking to them about how that they can better get a ceramic wet wrap on their thing, and moving those outside of your actual business, and maybe even creating another business there to diversify off of, or creating a partnership with someone and leveraging that audience and that relationship that you have with your audience all together. And I'd say that that's the last thing that you do. And that's for mature businesses that really understand your audiences. But it's powerful because now we've taken our single point of failure, which is your business itself, and we've created another business to start insulating from there as well when you start taking your audiences deep.
It kind of reminds me about like on Vrbo. So on Vrbo, you can opt for not damage protection. You can opt for like different insurances. Oh, like travel insurance. So when you're renting a place, you can say, hey, I want to add travel insurance. So they know that, hey, people are going to want this. And so they incorporate the ability to add this insurance. I don't think Airbnb does that. But
they do now.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
On
so
some of them, yeah.
It's pretty bad. I have Airbnb. I'm on Airbnb and Vrbo with some property, and I don't even know. So like, it makes so much sense because like I'm already renting, but to have, okay, now I can add this insurance. I can go a little bit deeper, which, hey, just everyone here, a super side note, like there's just a little nerdy bit maybe consider is add like route protection and consider adding like stuff like that as an upsell. People could tick for an extra 99 cents or another $2 or $3 on your store, depending on the products you have. That may not be a bad idea to add. We see people go a little deeper there without having to open an insurance company. But yeah, no, that's great. So I hear climb, jump, go deep. It's almost like upgrade. Climb is to almost upgrade them, like free to pay to bigger paid to bigger paid.
Totally.
It's almost like upgrade. Jumping them to another product might almost be like upsell, and I'm just using different lingo.
Yeah, or jumping
here.
them. I like to view it as jumping, like if you have a yard or an arena that they're in, and this arena is truck hitch arena or truck arena, and you have a hitch part of the arena, we're just going to jump them over to another truck related thing. But going deep is, let's think about who's actually jumping. What does this person actually care about? Like, do they care about safety, or do they care about looking good, or do they have families and stuff like that? And if they can afford a big expensive truck, they can probably want to protect it in some way, or another as well. So going deep is all about the audience and who's actually doing these jumping and climbing.
Yeah.
Actions.
Well, so if we could, I'd love to kind of just recap a couple things here, Stafford. So like, I love that you break out. What mode are we in? Are we in growth or are we in scale mode? Growth is like, hey, I'm fixing major fixes. Like, we're always trying to tweak and improve, but like these are like major fixes. Things are breaking and really constraining at certain points in the business. Scale mode is like, hey, I can keep throwing dollars into ads into the machine within a reasonable margin of space that I have. And as I continue going up, it continues to not hit a ceiling. I can keep growing, or I can keep scaling, and I'm not hitting major constraints. And if you're in growth mode, you're going to have to fix the next best thing, the next right thing. If you're in scale mode, you recommend, I grabbed three things here. I don't know if there's a fourth or a fifth, but three major things is like, hey, we're scaling, things are going really well, cash is probably coming into the bank, we're profitable, we're not hitting those constraints. I need to check for risk. I need to find like single point of failure. I really like that. What's the single point of failure that if I'm relying everything on this, it could destroy me if I didn't have this. The second thing, you're going to then start looking almost like internally, like at yourself, like what hats am I wearing? What are those things that I'm unleveraged in with my time and it's consuming me? And then the third thing is you start to diversify product offering. So you're also, which is also like a single point of failure, like at the same time also, because now you're like, hey, instead of relying only on this, let's start going by climbing, jumping, going deeper in these other areas.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I hired the guy to fill out a form all day was because I had this product that I was sitting on and I was running so hard and fast with it. And it kept me up at night knowing that I was only running with one product the whole entire time, which, by the way, if you have a one product business and it's working for you, keep on pushing that thing until you get to the point where you can start diversifying from there. So I have nothing against that at all, but you should recognize that this product is your lifeline to your lifestyle right now, and that it's worth looking at that. So I hired the other guy because I was like, I need to get more lines in the water. I need to start fishing for new opportunities, and I can't do it. So I need someone else to do that for me.
That's good stuff. I appreciate you, man.
So,
I have 3 final questions for you, if it's okay. Number one, like, what percentage of new customers would you say from the businesses you've worked with come from advertising? If you were to slap a rough number percentage-wise, like, that come from ads from businesses you work in.
Over 85% easily, maybe over 90%. That fluctuates as we bring customers back and get recurring customers and referrals, but all stuff. But I'd say, why try to just bet that people want to come to the door? You know, like the build it and they will come belief and all that stuff. Like, why do that and just like let people trickle in when I can just pay some money and I can get a whole entire flood to come in? Because if you're doing it right, I'd rather pay the money all day long and have the flood come all day long. And so I'd say most of it, almost all of it, comes from ads because I'm pushing on ads so hard.
Everyone, listen up. Ads work. You should do it. Second question. What's a book? Now, it sounds like you're an audiobook guy. So if you can remember, what's a book that changed your life?
Blue Fishing by Steve Sims.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's a good
That's
one.
so suiting for you, too.
It really is. And it was recommended to me by my boss at the time, and who became my partner. And I think it's because he saw that I was had potential and I was playing really small in life. And I wasn't fulfilling my potential. And I completely agree with it. Blue Fishing, it's an easy read. It's not overcomplicated. He hounds on the same few points the whole entire book. Take the hounding, take the pounding of him telling it to you over and over, because that helped me get out of my rut and realize that I can, I think he says in there, be a blue fisher. I could say I'm a blue fisher in that sense. It got me out of my rut. It helped me to realize that I really was playing small in life. And and someone saw my potential, recommended that book. I read that book and it absolutely changed what I wanted to do. More than anything, it changed how I approached what I was doing. I took things with more intentionality. I took things more seriously, and I just went at it from there. And I started making solutions happen. I started viewing problems differently and seeing more opportunities in the muck than I had ever before. And it was just as simple as saying, hey, you don't need permission for this to happen. You can go at this, and the solution doesn't have to look A to B. The solution can be A to Y to X to O to P to B. And that is just as fine as long as you're getting the results that you came out there to achieve. So love Blue Fishing. That was a really big book for me.
If you could go back in time to when you started getting in and really growing businesses, what's something you'd do differently that would get you there a lot faster?
After talking about the book, it's just kind of like I would tell myself to stop asking permission to take the moves and just take the chance and go for it. I'm not talking about being risky and doing something reckless. I'm saying take the calculated chance. It's okay to not know where you're going, but you're never going to know where you can go unless you find out where you're at right now. And so I didn't understand that until, I don't know, 4 years ago or something like that. I don't know. But it just changed everything. So if I could tell myself that and really internalize that and believe it, that would have changed my whole trajectory much, much earlier.
Well, everyone, stop asking permission. Just freaking do it. Just send it. as the internet youths would say.
Send it smartly.
Send it smartly. There you go. Send it smartly. Well, hey, Stafford, thanks for joining, man. And we appreciate you. We're fans over here. So anytime we get to talk, it's always a pleasure. Everyone, you've been listening to the Ecommerce Alley podcast produced by the legendary Dylan Counts. Stafford and I would love to say thank you for tuning in, for hanging out with us, and we'll see you inside the next episode.